except for dinner. I don't know.
It says we're live. Which reminds me, sorry, I'm just updating my fasting app. Because if I don't do it now, by the time the show is over, I will forget to adjust.
Oh, man.
Which reminds me, sorry, I'm just updating my fasting app. Okay.
No
so yeah, mute your background sounds from the YouTube video, just so you don't hear us double. Changed at 12. So yeah, mute your background sounds.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Video. Yeah, that way you're hearing us live and not...
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Beautiful. Oh, look. Night
almost
Train's
done. There we
here.
go.
Vamper's here.
We'll let everyone join us. Give them a few minutes. I think this every other week thing's working so far. You guys let us know if you think that every other week for a show, and then next week what we do, Nico, is we actually release highlights from this episode as its own video.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, just so people can rewatch without having to see all the in-betweens that they might not want to see, where we go off topic or whatever, right?
Or in case I say something I'm not supposed to, you guys have to cut it out in post.
I don't think there's anything you're not supposed to say. That's why we do it live, because we want like that genuine honesty, and we kind of want people to make mistakes and say things. So it's on you.
Like Leaky Drew over there?
Yeah, Leaky Drew, because he always comes on here and gives us like product information that nobody knows about for Rotor Riot.
Dang.
Oh yeah, he's sneaky. It's great. Sorry, I'm just moving my mic, letting all these people join. Welcome, guys. Please hit that subscribe button if you have not hit it. We really appreciate it. It costs you literally nothing, but it can really help us out. It's FPV Mama. How's she doing? So I have to show these before I forget, even though they're on my ear and you would think I would remember. So when my brother passed away in November, Jenny, who is pretty with PAX, wanted to send me something as like a pick-me-up or to be very nice. And she sent me these really cute earrings that are little props.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so they're hydro-dipped, and then they have like little black gemstones in them. And another girl in FPV actually makes these. And I'm horrible because I don't remember her name, but I will find it and post it in the description later. And I had her sticker here to show, and I've apparently lost it in all the chaos of Richard's desk. So I apologize. But yeah, there are some really cool FPV earrings for your lady folks so that you can get them into the hobby.
I would have never thought of something like that. It's very clever.
Right? Like I said, I like the recycling aspect of it. That at least we're not wasting props, especially wool props, right? Like, it's just another way to, help the environment. I found the sticker. So I don't remember her name, but that's one of the stickers. And then, yeah, Jenny sent these to me. So thank you again, Jenny. Very, very appreciated. They're super cute. So I actually remembered to wear them. And there's one more thing I have to show before we get to the Nico's interview here. I won a Pixie frame from Gank Motors, or Gank Multi-Rotors. I forget the name of the company. I guess a few weeks ago, and it came today. So he sent me an entire build ready to fly. It's a bind and fly of his new Pixie. Super tiny little quad. And I don't even know, honestly, forget what he has. Arthur motors, whatever those are. And I don't know what the stack is, but Rich thinks he found it today on Banggood. Jeffrey's stack. That's what we think it is, but I haven't asked him. But yeah, so if you're looking for a tiny little drone, definitely one to keep in mind, especially as a little racer. Once it dries up here a bit, I am going to be trying it. Yeah, Gank Multi-Rotors. Thanks, Night Train. Okay, let's get to the nitty-gritty. The official Quad Chat business.
Let's go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Welcome back to Quad Chat Season 2, Episode 2 with NikoFilmz. So, first things first, how the hell do we say your last name?
Oh, boy. It's pronounced Anishchenko.
Oh, I was close.
But if you're Russian, it's Anishenko. So it's a little bit different.
Anishenka? Anishenka?
Anishenko. Well, it's
I'm not going to be as good as that.
It's kind of... It's like that. So I just like to say for English speakers, Anishchenko, because
Okay.
that's how it's spelled.
So are you Russian then?
Yes, I was actually born in Russia, and I moved to the U.S. when I was tiny, when I was about 2.
Oh,
So
wow.
my first language was Russian, and my parents just figured, hey, we'll just let him go to school and he'll pick up English there. So I guess you can judge my English now based on K-12 education.
And you learned Russian at home then?
Yeah, we only speak Russian at home, just because my parents thought it'd be best to, otherwise I'll forget it. I mean, I'm already forgetting it just because I speak English for work and I'm in the U.S., but it's nice to know another language for sure.
I think it's really cool. I saw you in a recent edit, you're filming motorcycle backwards. I watched that this morning, and you actually start talking to the guy in Russian, and I'm like, I'm confused. Like, where does this guy live? Is he in the U.S.? Is he in where? So you live in where in the U.S. then?
So I'm based in Boulder, Colorado, but I like to travel around a lot. I have a nice little truck setup that I use to just go out anywhere west, and I love going on road trips. So sometimes people get confused. They're like, yo, are you based in Utah or California? where are you, man? So that's what I like.
You're actually pretty close to me. That's pretty sweet.
But yeah, that's actually my brother. I recently started doing this whole YouTube vlogging thing. It's kind of new to me. And I thought, hey, it'd be cool if I could just swing by San Diego with my brother Ilya. And he's got his motorcycle license. And we figured, hey, let's try something new. Let's try getting some backwards shots. And so we kind of put that video together.
So how long have you been flying for?
So the official start date of my FPV journey was February 15th of last year. And before then, it was like a couple weeks of simulator practice. That's kind of the official story. But I didn't really look at getting into FPV until like January last year when I had that ski accident.
Okay.
And I was like, well, because kind of my start into the whole thing. If you want me just to dive into
it's all about you. You go right ahead.
Okay, so basically, I've always loved flying, and I was like, what's the cheapest way to fly when I was in college? So I was like, the cheapest way to fly is to get a paraglider. So I saved up a bunch of money, got a paraglider, got into that, and then got into speed flying. And that was kind of my identity at that point. I was like really into the adrenaline sports, the thrill seeking, the speed flying. I got into skydiving afterwards. And I was just like, I really enjoyed it. But there was one thing that was missing from it. And it was just kind of the filmmaking aspect of it. So I've always been really into filmmaking. And if you look at some of my older videos, you'll notice that I always tried to include it. Because whenever I'd be speed flying with my bros, I'd always like be right up behind them with my GoPro and my helmet and try to get some really cool shots of them. And when I got into that skiing accident, I couldn't paraglide or speed fly for quite some time. And whenever I don't do anything adrenaline seeking for, over a 2-week period, I start to get a little antsy. So I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I end up hitting up Carter and I'm like, yo, dude, I know you do this whole FPV stuff. Why don't you build me a drone? Why don't you teach me? And of course he was like, yeah, whatever. Like every day, like somebody reaches out to me and like asks me about FPV, but they're not serious. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm serious. Like I'll pay whatever. Just build me a drone. I just want to try it while I'm injured and I'm like healing. I still want to be able to get some shots of my friends doing some cool stuff. So when he ordered the parts, I was kind of waiting for them to arrive. I got the controller. That was like the very first thing I got. And I just hopped on a DRL sim. And I was just putting in like every day after work, I would come in. I had nothing else to do. And I would just put in like 3 hours a day for like 2 or 3 weeks, racked up, I think over 60 hours total until I started flying. And it was kind of meditative for me. I was just sitting there, just playing around, seeing what I could do, trying to practice something fancy. But at that point, I really didn't know of the whole FPV community. I had no idea like all the stuff that Rotorite was doing and all these major players. I knew about Johnny because I think pretty much everybody does, but I wasn't very familiar with the whole side of things. And I think it took me a while to get familiar because Carter was always on the technical side, So I never had to like go on YouTube and be like, all right, what do I do? You know, how do I connect the crossfire? How do I figure this out? Because that would be Carter, right? I just come to him like, hey, dude, what do I do? Help. And he'd fix it. So that's kind of the story of how I started out. And ever since last year, February 15th, that first flight when I crashed into a snowbank, that's kind of changed a lot of things about my life, I would say.
It's super cool because everyone always tells us they found some YouTube video and that's how they got into it. But you like backtracked because you started with the flying and then we're like, okay, I can't fly, so what can I do next? So that's super cool.
It just seemed like the next step, I think, and I think just the injury kind of accelerated it, because when you're chasing somebody on a speed wing, you're kind of limited. You can only fly from behind, right? Because, I mean, just the physics of it, you can't really fly backwards in front of someone. So when I got friends with Carter and we started to fly together, there were a couple of videos where he would chase me with the drone. I'm on the paraglider and he's like doing orbits around me. And I'm like, hey, that's really interesting. You can really get a unique perspective. You can go in front. You can fly backwards. You can, fly right up to the person. The main limiting factor was when I was with my friends is that they would always freak out if I got too close. They're like, yo, dude, if you collide with me in the air, I mean, it's one thing if your drone hits a wing, it's a whole different, ballgame if you got a whole nother person that just impacts you. So it was one of those things.
I think that's super cool. Jake, you interrupt when you want because I've like pre-brainstormed a ton of questions for him.
Well, number one, you said you were working. What do you do for work?
Here, let me set up my mic. It's kind of falling.
No problem. I was trying to find where my pen went. I somehow lost it in the abyss in this room. Oh, it came back to me. Okay, I got it.
Can you still hear me, guys?
Yeah.
It's still kind of sliding towards me, but
it wants me to be eating it for this interview.
We'll work with what we have. I'm basically a sales guy. I'm an account manager for a storage company. So it's nothing.
That's so funny. Jake and I are both in sales.
Real.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a common FPV thing, I think.
What do you guys sell?
Well, how can I be echoing? Sorry, one sec. Brian's saying I'm echoing, and it's definitely me, but I don't even have the show open. So I don't know how I could be echoing.
You were echoing, but now you're not.
Yeah, see, it's not me. It was Jake 100%. Look at that guilty ass face.
It was not me. I promise.
I blame Jake.
I have my stuff set up. Plus, look.
Me too. That's what I'm saying. I have headphones and don't blame me. Okay, thanks, Brian, for the feedback.
Anyhow, you said you only played with the sim for a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, I think it was 3 weeks maybe total.
Okay. How confident were you after playing with that?
Well, so whenever I would fly, I would, of course, you get this adrenaline rush when you're starting out. The thing about a sim is it's really easy to just change the angle and put it at like 45 degrees. So when I was trying to, do the little races in the sim, I'd put it up at a really high angle, I'd go as fast as I could. So when I switched over to the real thing, I thought, well, this is how you're supposed to fly FPV drones, right? It's supposed to be at like a 45, 50 degree angle. So that's why I ran out of battery for my very first flight. And I come to Carter, I'm like, dude, like you said this drone would fly for 6 minutes, right? It's got 6-inch props. What's the matter? It fell out of the sky at 3 minute mark. And he's like, well, show me the video and we'll kind of see what the problem is. And he's like, dude, you're ripping it at like 60 miles an hour. Of course it's going to die so fast. So I still have the footage of my first flight. It was fun. It's just a little bit different with the physics. It's still like a little bit different, but
is it up on your YouTube?
No, it's not on the YouTube.
No?
I should probably share it on my Instagram or something. But I was thinking about making a video just about like my progress over the past year.
Yeah, no doubt. Because honestly, if you've only been flying for that long, man, I mean, I've been flying for 5 years, maybe more, 6 years now. I mean, Nays 32 days where you had to, not even Nays 32. I think my first one was, oh man, what was that? I can't even remember. It was like Clean Flight or something like that. It was ridiculous. You had to tune literally every little itty bitty thing on these things.
Dang.
But I mean, looking through your Instagram and stuff here, and I'm just blown away. I could have sworn. By the way, I did flinch on that one video. But looking at your flight videos and stuff here, you look like a well-seasoned pilot. Like you've been doing this
Appreciate
forever,
it. Thanks. I am kind of jealous of you though, because when I started flying, I was like, dang, I wish I started this way earlier. Because when I started to look at the FPV community and how long it's been around for, I was like, wow, like I'm really late to the game. And so I think that was part of the reason why I was motivated to just try to do more stuff, just because I feel like I'm falling behind. And it's, of course, from the technical aspect, like I have no idea what I'm doing still.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear though too, because a lot of, like me, for instance, I'll look at something like my buddy will say, hey, something's wrong with my drone. And I'll be like, all right, let's change these filters up or whatever it is. And he will have zero idea on what I'm talking about, but his drone will get fixed. I'll fix it real quick and easy. Right. But he flies like he's getting to be kind of like you. It kind of makes me jealous because I was $15,000 into all my stuff before I finally stopped really breaking all my stuff.
Dang. So, wow. Well, I mean, I'm still breaking my stuff daily. Just ask Andy Shen how many Ichabod frames I ordered from him, and he'll tell you.
Ask me what you're flying, actually. Do you have it with you so that you can talk about it and show us? Because it's the weirdest looking setup I've seen, I think.
Yeah, so
that's the one with the multi-props, right? Oh, no.
So this is actually my very first, can you guys see it very well?
Yeah.
This is my very first frame that I ever got. So back in February of last year, this is what I asked Carter to build me. Because I just did some research and I'm like, I'm not really, I didn't really know much about the freestyle side of things. The racing side, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's not me. So cinematic, what kind of cinema drones are there? And this was like the best thing that I could find. So, I mean, what can I tell you about it?
How does that camera affect the flight? I mean, being off-centered like that, because all my drones, I mean, they're all centered straight, narrow in the middle. Meanwhile, your camera is literally right next to your camera there. How does that affect your flights?
So with this camera, like the great thing about it, the whole reason why it's a little bit off-centered is that you get to adjust it on the fly really quickly. So this one's kind of beat up because I was practicing yesterday and I smashed it up. But this is really good for like fast action stuff. So let's say you're filming some base jumpers or some speed flyers and somebody pulls up with a smaller sized wing, which flies much faster. Well, you can just land, you can tilt this back and you can go right back up into the air and chase them. So it's really nice. Also in that last video that I shared on my YouTube with the backwards biker, for that one, I just took this, and I can't deal with this particular setup because the VTX, I still need to extend it for this one. But I just pushed it forward at about 40 degrees or so.
Bro, that's brilliant.
That would let me fly fast enough backwards so that it would still look effective. Like it's not, it still look kind of cool. You can see that he's cruising. It was.
How did you not hit the ground 100,000 more times, or did you just not show all the fails?
Well, I showed all the times that I hit the ground, but I didn't show all the fails that I had. I just thought that it was more exciting for the ones that I actually hit the ground. But part of the reason why I was hitting the ground is that when you're flying backwards like this, your camera is up much higher than you normally would be if you're flying like this, right? So when I'm trying to frame the shot correctly, I'm trying to get as low as possible as I can. And you kind of forget that
there's the rest of a drone there. Yeah,
so there's like the rest of the drone. Exactly. So I kept hitting the back of these props and they just got completely chipped. I chipped the back of the frame as well.
Oh no.
But I was actually surprised that this frame handled it so well, because it seemed like I could just hit the ground a few times and it kept flying. I didn't have to switch props until after I was done getting the shots that I needed. So I was pretty impressed.
Ooh.
And sorry, did you say what motors and stuff you have on it, or no? Did I miss that when I was doing something?
I mean, we can look.
I'm just curious because honestly, like it is such an interesting build. Like all mine have a top plate, first of all. Second of all, the batteries always go on the top plate above everything else, and it's more centralized. So I think it's so different that you have the camera with the camera, which makes a lot of sense because you're going to be filming exactly what you're seeing. But then also having the battery on the back, like it's such a different looking, like Vamper says, it's wild. Like it's just such a different drone.
Yeah, there's a lot more stuff you can do this. It's just a very flexible setup. And I think big reason that I like the setup as well is that you're not limited by your angle. So a lot of these FPV drones, like this one right here, I'm just throwing them all up in there. Like this one, you're going to be able to see the props in view if you go anywhere close to zero tilt. With this one, that's not a problem. So you can have a tiny amount of tilt. So that video with the shuffle girl, Emily, I didn't have that much tilt for that because all I was doing is just doing orbits around her. So you don't need that much speed. So
you don't have a 360 setup, right? Because I remember I saw a comment where you replied today on someone's comment telling you to get a 360. Because Flying Brian thinks you should get a 360, and Somatic thinks you're already using one.
So I do have a 360 setup, and I've only used it for like 2 videos. Basically what happened was Insta360 reached out to me and Carter, and they were like, yo, you guys should, we'll send you a camera. You guys should, throw some footage for us and create something cool. So I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And so they sent it out to us, and we got it, and we're like, well, shit, now we got to build a drone for it. So Carter builds a drone, and it's, I think it's a Stan FPV setup. I forgot. It's like 3-inch or something. I mean, it just shows how much I use it. I use it for like 3 videos, maybe 2, and I just didn't like the low light of it, so I just kind of stopped. I don't think Insta360 was very happy about that.
No,
but,
dude,
I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's a genuine review.
Yeah, like
right?
The way I see it, like I don't want to try to push something if it just doesn't work for me. And the main downside I saw for 360 footage is that I think the beauty of cinematic FPV is that you're able to get really close to fast dynamic action. And with the Insta360 setup, you can get really close, but it's going to look like it's a mile away because it's a 360 camera. So they're designed for somebody holding it on a stick, putting it on the top of their helmet and being able to see your whole body. So that kind of makes the footage, at least the kind that I do, not look super great. So I do have a setup, but I don't use it. Will I use it? Probably. I think there's particular aspects of it that still interest me that you could use, particularly for such as landscape, or if you're flying super close to somebody. But then you definitely want to have you want to make sure you have prop guards for that kind of application and use.
I'm just seeing here. There's a few. So Somatic says you should check out Z Carazales. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I have not seen the name before, so I apologize. But his 360 frame prototype. He thinks you're talking about some interesting points. Mm-hmm. And Brian says you should get 360 to send him a camera, and he'll do more filming for them.
I don't know if that bridge is burned yet, but I can try.
Dude, no, I really appreciate the fact that you're being honest, because like even I was thinking about getting one of those things, and if it's not getting the right lighting and stuff like that, I'm not interested,
Well, I mean, okay, so it is a great camera. I just used it in the wrong applications, because if you think about the videos that I made with it, so the first one, I think one of them was it was at a BMX park, and it was completely cloudy and the sun was setting. Like it was pretty dark. So it turned out kind of cool, but it was just a little bit grainy and you could see the motion blur. I don't like that. So that was the first one. Then the second one I think was for the concert that we went to down by Colorado Springs. And so that one is the same thing. It was night. It was night out. It was dark. And yeah, so that one's actually just the regular GoPro, no 360. Oh, okay. So you're gonna have to scroll down a bit further. So it's usable for very specific applications. A lot of people sometimes when they see FPV stuff and they're not familiar with how it works, they just assume that my stuff is 360, just because sometimes it can be tricky. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. So the good thing about
Sorry,
this
Jake,
is
can you
that
make it full screen? Or bigger in any way?
That's as big as I can really
Zoom
go. I
zoom
might
like
go with-
this. Oh, not your camera. Come on now. You can zoom in on your browser. Control plus. There you go.
It kind of works like that. Oh, I see what you're talking about.
So this
for
is 360, sorry?
that
Oh,
is
yeah.
Insta360. So for web use for Facebook and Instagram, it's a great platform. But for anything cinema, I don't think 360 is ready for that yet. I think that if you ever want to put it on a screen and blow it up for people, it's just not going to look super good. But it's a new technology, so it's going to keep improving. There are some huge perks to this kind of stuff, but just for me, not really ready to invest the time.
How many
into it.
frames is in that thing? How many FPS were you shooting on that one?
I think this was 60 or maybe 50 because.
And it was still getting that much motion blur?
What's that?
And it was still getting that much motion blur? I mean, you got some amazing shots, but I can definitely see the blur. Handlebars, wheels.
Yeah, it's just when it's dark like that.
Gotcha.
You run into that issue.
Okay.
Because the sensor on that thing is tiny, and you need a lot of light to be able to capture the full image.
That's pretty cool.
So your mainstay is kind of like the cameras, the filming part of it, the cinematics of it and everything, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'm really obsessed with the filmmaking side of things. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking to a person who likes to edit for fun. Like I'll be editing at night, and then I look at the time and it's 3 a.m. I'm like, shit, like I'm still not done with edit. I needed, and I still need to do more of it. It's just, I just really like the creating part of it. It's a big.
I see you have gotten a ton of like amazing opportunity shots here, like whether it's the paragliding, the skydiving, fireworks. Is that a cruise ship?
Yeah, it's a cruise ship.
So how the hell are you getting all these opportunities?
How you doing
for some guy who's only been here a year?
Well, I mean, a lot of people assume they're like, oh, all these people are reaching out to me and they're like, Nikolai, please film some for us. We'll pay you. But that's really not the case. And that's not the case for most pilots, I would say.
No.
Just because FPV is so new. But how I get these opportunities is I reach out to people, or I have, people that I'm friends with who reach out to me and they say, hey, listen, like I got a buddy of mine who does this. Or it's just like an opportunist kind of deal. So the cruise ship, we just Carter and I happened to go on a trip to California, and we were just looking for stuff we can formation fly, and we just see this cruise ship parked. It was parked there probably because of COVID, and we were like way across the bay, and so we just flew around it. Why not? So that's the kind of stuff that I like to do for sure, just for fun, and it's a good way to build your portfolio.
Are you ever, like, in this instance, I probably would have been shitting my britches just a little bit. Like, should I be doing this? Are you ever in that state of mind?
Oh, like 90% of the time, I'm like, oh shit, are we supposed to
just
do this?
Send it anyway.
But hey, I mean, a little bit of adrenaline helps make your flying a little bit better, right? It's a bit more exciting.
So I'm assuming your friends are the base jumpers, and that your friends are the airplane owners and stuff like that, where those would be hard to get an opportunity if you didn't have an in, right?
Yeah, for something like that, you definitely wouldn't want to just chase a plane without letting the pilot know, because
I would hope not.
You're gonna have the FAA after you pretty quick. But yeah, so the base jumpers, kind of the story behind that was I got my skydiving license back in North Carolina when I was doing some training for work there, and I was just bored because there's no mountains there. Well, there are sort of mountains there, but
there's no mountains.
Yeah. So I met up with this guy Joe, and then when he was coming out to the Turkey Boogie in Utah, he hit me up. He's like, "Yo, dude, a bunch of buddies and I are going out there to do some base jumping." I was like, "All right, let's do it." So Card and I headed out there, and we got some really fun stuff. But the very first time I ever filmed base jumpers was actually July 4th of last year. Basically, what happened was this was when we were coming back from the trip to California, and we took the northern route. There's like two ways you can come back if you're doing a road trip. And I always wanted to check out the bridge in Idaho, the Perrine Bridge where the base jumpers are jumping off of. So I figured, hey, let's just go over there. We didn't know anyone there at all. And we just showed up. And it just so happened that the very first person that I walked up to was Miles Dasher.
Wow.
Do you guys know who he is?
Not a clue.
If you're familiar with Red Bull base jumpers, like he's one of the most famous base jumpers like of all time. He has well over 5,000 base jumps. And I walk up to him, I'm like, dude, I've seen you in like so many Red Bull videos. Do you mind if I, get a drone shot of you? That'd be super sick. And the guy is the chillest dude. He's like down for whatever. And he's like, yeah, dude, let's go do it, man. It'll be sick. So I end up filming Miles Dasher for my very first one. I'm like,
wow.
When I was behind the sticks on that, I was like, oh my God, like this guy is famous. If I mess this up,
shaking like crazy.
I'm going to mess this up for good. But it turned out to be a pretty cool shot. And he actually reached out to me afterward. And he's like, yo, dude, I'm doing like this promo for Red Bull. Can I license this footage? And I'm like, oh my God.
That's amazing.
For the footage, that's sweet. So if you're looking to capture more footage, sometimes it's all about just showing up, but you never want to just show up and not speak with the people. And you always want to have some footage on hand that you can share them so that you can prove to them that you know what you're doing. And I would not show up if you feel like you're not ready yet and you don't know what you're doing, because there's a lot of things that could happen and you want to make sure that everybody's safe.
I think honestly, it's amazing that you got in with someone with Red Bull. And the reason I say that is every Red Bull video I watch has like the shittiest drone pilots. And I'm like, there are so many better people. So when I hear that good people are finally getting it, it's such like a motivational boost. Like, hey, there's a chance. Like, we're going to see better videos soon. And I know Johnny just did a really cool one for dirt biking. And it's like a really sick moto one. And they used Johnny finally. And it turned out awesome. And it's actually a music video for some rapper dude. I can't remember his name, but Vicky Golden and a whole bunch of people are in it that are
I think it was Juice WRLD.
Yes, that's the one. Exactly. So to see Johnny in that and like doing all the drone shots, and then, it just gives us hope that finally some good people are out there.
Oh, yes. I think, I'm honestly kind of surprised that FPV's been around for so long. And only, I would say this year is, or maybe it's just me from my experience because I'm kind of super new to this, but it seems like all of the new stuff that's happening, like this year is the year where you start seeing like Apple commercials with Johnny stuff. This is the year that you start seeing Red Bull really fully embracing it, and all these other different companies starting to realize that this is the next move for aerial filmmaking. And if you do not have an FPV pilot on your set, you're just missing out.
I agree.
No, 100%, 100%. Now, two questions at that. Number one, are you part 107?
I am.
That was on my list too.
Perfect.
Fairly recently though.
Right. No, I think I actually have to renew mine next year. But anyways, that and wow, I totally lost it. It was important too.
It was Red Bull related, I'm assuming.
No.
Was it on the business side of things?
Do you want us to come back to you when your brain
Let me eat a
catches up to the
Twinkie.
train?
I'll remember in a minute.
All right. So because we're talking about 107 and some of these crazy flights, you were investigated by the FAA.
Yes, I was.
After your house burnt down, nonetheless.
Yeah. So that was a pretty crazy time, and it was pretty stressful because imagine one day you have a nice house that you chill in, the next day you're in a motel room and you don't know where you're going to be staying for the next few months because your house is it didn't burn down completely, but it burned down to the point where it's not safe for anyone to stay in there without.
What happened with your house? Like, what was the cause?
Well, we never really got down to the bottom of that. We think it was probably a LiPo left on charge somewhere by someone, by either me or Carter. But we don't we never really found out. The investigators never really got back to us with like a, set thing. But I don't know. It was weird because they came back to Carter and they're like, "Yo, dude, what's this?" And they take like this shell of like a Mavic. And there's like, "Is this a butane?" Like, case?
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
a Mavic shell. What are you talking about? Like, oh,
you can
okay,
tell they have
we'll
no
keep
clue
looking.
when they ask you if it's butane.
Yeah, it was weird. Those guys, I was kind of like, oh, okay. But yeah, and then a week afterward, the FAA, we both get letters in the mail, except mine somehow ended up at my parents' house, so they freak out.
How did they find
so
your
like, what is
parents'
this?
address?
Like, Nikolai, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Let's read it. And so Carter also got that letter, which is weird because he was never at the event. Like, I wanted him to come
So
out.
someone snitched.
Well, people just assumed that like back then we did a lot of stuff together. But ever since he kind of left FPV Films, he hasn't really been around for much since then. But yeah, it's just, I read that I almost had like a panic attack. I was like, oh my God, like we lost so much stuff in this fire. We don't know what's going to happen next. All our stuff, all our drone parts were all in the basement where the fire started. And they just got completely hosed by the by the firefighters. So we don't know how much parts we have that are still usable or not. A lot of them aren't usable because you can see like rust on them already. And now this could be upwards of $20,000 fine for flying over, people at that protest. I didn't have my 107 at that point. So I think that kind of.
So yeah, sorry. For those who don't know, Niko flew at the George Floyd protest.
Maybe you should show that video.
Yeah, Jake, show the video if you can find it. It's on his YouTube, one of his initial videos, I think.
I actually don't think it's on YouTube. I think it's on Instagram, but it's also on AirViews.
It's on YouTube in your video where you're talking about the FAA. You show clips of it.
Oh, right.
So he was the red Cinedrone that everyone saw going around on Instagram and trending at the George Floyd protest, filming people.
Look familiar?
That one right there. So a lot of you have probably seen it and not even realized. But no, come on. You definitely got snitched. Because there's no way they'd know your parents' address. Like, that's weird.
Okay. I mean, this is kind of how things work. And this is something that I realized kind of afterward. There isn't a collective body of FAA personnel that just sit on Facebook and Instagram, and that's their job. They just run through all your FPV videos, and they try to find that one guy who's breaking the law to investigate. There isn't such a thing. If you're getting investigated by the FAA, it's because somebody reported you. And oftentimes it's not just one person who reports you for that kind of stuff. So the reason I bring that up is that whenever I post a video where it's like, I'm pushing the limits, I'm pushing the boundaries of FPV in some sort of way, the legality line, it might be a little bit blurry. And people are like, oh my God, he's ruining the hobby. Let's report him. The fact that you're reporting that video is what ruins the hobby, not the video itself. Does that make sense?
Find
because
the guy.
As soon as you report something, that's when the FAA has to, have some kind of action afterwards because it's their job. They're like, all right, somebody reported it. Now I have to look into it. Now I have to, put appropriate measures on it. So I just wanted to say that because I thought it was important.
Find the guy that was filming your drone right here.
So I think the reason that was such a huge deal wasn't just because it got, shared by a bunch of different people and a lot of drone pilots got upset because they're like, oh my God, he's breaking the law. But the other thing was there was a news guy who was behind me that whole time that I didn't know about. I was standing in the crowd and he was like way behind me and he turns out to be an FPV pilot. Right.
Oh, wow.
And so when he sees the drone in the air, of course, he's like, holy shit, this is sweet. And so he ended up filming the entire 5-minute segment of my flight, just the whole thing. So that was the other thing that I think his news station had some FAA people reach out to him as well.
Yeah, you were snitched. 100%. Nobody would have that much detail about who was there and filming, especially to assume Carter was involved, right? Like you said, he wasn't even on premise. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think what happened was some drone pilots came across. Well, it's funny because whenever you post something like that, when you just share it with the general community, just like with random people who aren't drone pilots, they think it's incredible. They're like, oh, this is amazing. I love this. But then you start sharing it to some drone groups, and that's when you start getting like some serious backlash. Like, it's scary how intense, you know, I've gotten so much hate mail just from that one video, and that's not the only one. And it's always from some FPV pilot.
I think some of it is honestly jealousy, but I think some of it is fear, right? Because some people are like, oh my God, if FPV's seen doing this, the FAA is going to crack down on us. And everyone's just so afraid of the FAA and their rules. Mm-hmm. As a Canadian who's had regulated flying pretty much since I started flying 2 years almost ago, they don't really do anything. Like, unless you're blatantly, obviously breaking the law, no one's going to show up and harass you for flying at a park, right? And again, it takes someone reporting you're causing problems. And I agree, though. Like, the drone community is super, they're either like 100% all in supportive, or they can be very like terrified and catty almost. And
we need to stop self-policing ourselves, because that's what's ruining the hobby. It's us self-policing ourselves for like minor stuff, like stuff where it should be legal. And the flight that I did afterwards, you know, I don't know if you read the new FAA regulation, but you are allowed to fly over people now if you have like the certain, you know, parameters with your drone. So the whole thing that I got investigated for, it's kind of at the door now, because now if somebody were to, you know, report me, they'd be like, hey, this is okay now.
Ooh, where's that message?
It's
this
funny,
one. Jack Fu. Jack Fu says when he first heard about it, it wasn't, he said it wasn't, I said it was another FP version. Oh my God, my words aren't working. When I first heard about this, I said it was another FPV person that wanted attention and ratted you out. Jealous people who can't do what you do. Yeah, a lot of people are thinking, wait, where'd that one go? It was me.
I'm jealous.
This one. You get more hate than most pilots combined. That's so depressing, though. Because you're doing some really awesome stuff. Like, when I asked you to come on the show, I had no idea, honestly, that you were getting hate or that all this other stuff was going on behind the scenes.
Well, I don't really get paid that much. I mean, total, to be honest, if you guys really want to see how much money I've made in my FPV career just from drones, it's probably.
Oh, no, she said hate, actually.
Oh, hate?
Yeah. She didn't know you were being hated on that much.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I didn't know you were being hated on. Sorry, it's my accent. I didn't know you were being hated on that much.
I should have my headphones in right now. Like, I have you on like speaker on my laptop, and like there's a furnace right behind.
That's where the echo came from.
Oh, really?
I told you it wasn't me.
But I did mute the YouTube side of things, so that should be fine.
Yeah, no, it's gone now. They're just hating on me because they can.
But yeah, I mean, as far as the hate goes, I feel like whenever you're trying to do something that's new or unique, you're always going to have haters. So if you look at the Wright brothers, so you think about it, like, dude, the Wright brothers, they're really impressive, right? The first to fly a heavier than air aircraft, take it off from the ground. And yet you look at their history, and all these French pilots in France that haven't even flown yet were saying they were scam artists. We're saying that they're just lying to everybody. And it took them years until the Wright brothers finally made their way over to France and demonstrated in person for all of them to like retract what they said, like all this negative stuff that they had. It's like, oh, we're so sorry. Like, you guys are legit. You could do circles in the sky. We can only do little hops on the ground. So that's the kind of stuff I feel like you gotta pay attention to. Is if you're getting hate, obviously if it's got to be safe what you're doing. So that's number one. But if you're getting hate for something that's safe or relatively safe, it's just a metric of how much you're pushing the boundaries of FPV or how much you're breaking the norm. Like, if you're new to this and you're trying something new, of course people are going to hate on you. You know, there's a lot of the people that have sent me like the worst messages. Sometimes I'm like, all right, let's look at their profile and see who they are. And then turns out he's been flying FPV for like 6 years. And you look at some of his videos and you're like, okay, well, like it makes sense why you're mad at me.
I hope that's the actual message you send to people. Like, I really hope that's what you say.
No, I think the best way to deal with haters, and I think I mentioned it in one of my videos, is just to block them, because they're going to keep reporting you. It doesn't matter what you tell them. It doesn't matter how you justify your actions. When I was talking to my FA investigator, like after the investigation was finished, he was a pretty chill dude. Like, I actually took him out and we flew. I let him fly my Cinewoop around.
And
that's really cool.
That's what you did. You just got a little brown on the nose is what you did.
Well, this was after like everything concluded, right? I was like, yo, dude, have you ever seen an FPV drone? Have you ever flown FPV? He's like, no. I'm like, dude, let's go fly. And so I share within the Cinewoop, and he's like he's got his pilot's license, and he used to fly private jets and stuff. And he just like takes it off the ground and he's like flying around. I'm like, wow, this guy doesn't need a simulator. Like, he knows what he's doing.
What?
He was pretty good. So I was like, dang, that's awesome. But sorry, where was that leading to? Oh yeah. So afterward, when we were talking about it, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, we had a few more reports come in about your videos. And I'm like, all right, which ones? And he's like, well, the bridge video. So the one where my friend Douglas, he jumps the bridge in Denver. And then the skyscraper one, and then the one with the crane video with Kira. And I'm like,
why
all those videos are legal.
Yeah.
The bridge
You're being
video,
careful, right?
might seem that it's illegal because I'm flying over a road and you might think, oh, there's like vehicles below, but we waited when there wasn't a vehicle to fly that one. So this one got reported to the FAA.
I mean, I feel like she's in trouble more than you are.
Really jealous of you.
And she's insane, by the way. Like, there's no fucking way I would ever even come close to that.
I would not be able to do that. And I respect anyone who has the balls.
Oh, I respect the hell out of her. I'm just terrified for her life.
Oh, God. One arm.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, when she got down to the ground, well, actually what happened was the cops got called because we were having too much fun. And people thought she was going to, like, jump off or something. I don't know. So the police showed up, and, like, this was right as we were packing up. And there's, like, 7 cop cars, like 2 fire trucks, and they talked their way out of it. They're like, hey, we're just filming some stuff. We're just doing this for art, trying to take some pictures. And they were able to get off with a warning.
Did you get in trouble? This is the other one you're saying you got in trouble for?
Well, I didn't get in trouble
for these.
This is just something that got, that the FAA investigator just happened to mention to me that got called in
by the way.
For reported. So that last shot was actually Carter's shot. But
that's
I really like this. I really like this, like the colors of this video. And
so you fly analog. Did you have any issues around those satellites on the roof there? I'm pretty sure they're satellites. Are they not up there?
Yeah. So those are like cell towers. I've had situations where it can be difficult to see what you're flying with those around, but if you change your channel, I didn't have any issues there. I had more problems when you dove a little bit lower with like all the Wi-Fi coming from, every single room in that building, basically. But
Ryan says you make him pee in his pants. Jack Fu says he's scared.
Oh, we gotta see.
Z says it's so dope.
Most recent favorites. Where to go?
Vamp says it's insane.
This is so cool.
Oh, this one was such an amazing. And honestly, like your other one you did was cool with the runway, but because of the water aspect, I feel like you're risking so much more doing this one. And it's just so cool.
I'm not really risking that much. The pilot is, though, because if he doesn't do it right, he's going to flip over the plane. And that's a, $400,000 plane that you're looking at, and it's brand new. He bought it. It's like, this is nuts. So
how choppy was the air behind that thing?
Oh, it was crazy. The Real Steady does a fantastic job cutting out all the turbulence, but there's two different places behind the plane that you got to watch out for. The first one is, of course, the prop wash, which is directly behind the tail.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you fly into there, it's kind of, it's very, very bumpy, but also you get pushed back a little bit because the rotor's so bad. The other place is the wingtips. So if you get too close to the wings, they start to go out. There's some wake going out from behind it. And so with that, I've had situations where I flew a little bit too close up to it, and then my drone almost got caught in it and like spun out. But
oh my gosh,
flying in air mode, like right before it was able to spin out, it like stopped right here, and I was able to correct it, and I fell back. So that is something you definitely want to watch out for, but it's not something that is dangerous, so to say. It's only dangerous to your drone, because if anything happens to you, you just crash into the ground or fall behind.
I mean, when I say you're risking a lot, I mean if you hit that water at all, your drone's going under, and you got to go swimming to find it. Whereas the pilot generally is pretty in control and know what they're doing and tend to not, crash the plane in the water.
So this was actually not planned. The water skiing. Mm-hmm. When we were this was actually a super fun trip, because I came out to Arizona because it was cold in Colorado, and I was like, yo, this wintertime, let's see what we can film. And I invited my friend over, and basically what we did was I was sitting in the back of that plane, and we were just flying around looking for different locations where we could film and just capture some really cool footage. And we just happened to come across this lake with a runway that's right next to it. And that's where we landed. And so he let me off by the beach, and then I was flying from the actual beach while he was doing that. We had discussed earlier, like, hey, what if we get a really cool shot of you water skiing? And he's like, it's a bit too windy. Like, you can see the waves on the water. It's not super safe. So I just kind of thought, hey, I'm just not going to ask about it anymore. And then all of a sudden, when we're up in the air, I'm chasing him, and he's just getting lower and lower to the water. And I'm like, oh, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And he's just like, I see him touch down. I'm like, oh my God, he's doing it. And I was like right on him. So that happened on one take.
So are you flying, like, are you sitting in the plane while you're filming this?
No, I'm not in the plane.
Okay.
I really want to, but that would be really illegal. This was all.
I mean, it's not illegal if you have someone maintaining line of sight on the ground, from what I understand, right?
Really? I thought just flying from a moving vehicle, especially an airplane, is kind of a big no.
Nobody does that. Nobody needs to know. Or nobody.
I guess, I don't know. I guess that's where the US and Canada is different. Like, everyone here has done a vehicle chase from in a car. Like, it's just like something everyone does. It's like your rite of passage.
I mean, I do too.
I'm talking about Canada, Jake. You can't shake your head.
It's one of those things that we don't talk about, right?
Yeah. No, that is super cool, though. Holy shit balls. Like,
no,
and that's honestly what attracted me to your videos, is like you film the shit nobody else has been able to film. You have some of the coolest, most daring, and it's all Red Bull and like high quality footage. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I'd expect them to be producing. So it's so cool.
I don't work for Red Bull, or I don't work for anyone.
Not yet.
Hopefully one day we could change that. I think that'd be super cool to do some stuff for Red Bull. But yeah, it's the bush plane stuff. It's super fun. I really like to chase planes, because I like to chase, anything that flies, because I think you really only get the aspect of flight and that feeling of flight whenever you're flying with something else. If you're just flying and you're filming like a landscape shot, that's cool, but you don't really get that feeling of flight until you put another drone in front of that landscape. And that's what Card and I really like to do when we first started it out. And I think that helped me get really good at just chasing things, because when you're chasing a drone, that can be pretty tricky, especially if you're trying to stay within 2 feet away from them, just to make sure that go from a wide angle.
I want to know secrets.
The secrets? Just go out and do it, man. No, I guess the secrets, you want to have really good communication. And this is something that you kind of develop with time. I think Card and I got pretty lucky, because since we basically live together, we still live together. we were able to fly a lot more, and we were able to develop, we knew how each one of us flies. And when you're just meeting up with some random FPV pilot and just trying to fly chase with them, I think it'll be a little bit more trickier in that case. But in any way, the very first, the leader has to be very slow and smooth in their turns. And he always has to call out what he's doing and where he's going ahead of time. The guy behind, you just got to make sure that your framing is right and you get as close as you can to the person. You don't want to fly into their prop wash, so you want to fly off a little bit to the side, and a little bit below works well too, just because it looks the nicest. So whenever you're doing turns, you're like, just picture yourself as like an F-18 pilot, you're in Top Gun or something like that. How do those pilots fly in formation? It's always like this. So that's how you
figured out why your cameras are mounted the way they are.
Why is that?
Framing.
There you go.
Bro.
So, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think the most important aspect of flying cinematic FPV is not your flying, it's your framing. And that's a lot of times what pilots miss. They think, oh, I can chase this guy, and they're on him the whole time, but their framing is off. The angle's too high. And so the whole shot is cut off halfway. I've seen that so many times. I've seen that with pilots who've been flying for years and who are getting like really good gigs. You want to make sure the framing is correct. In order to do that, you need to have just the right angle for just the right speed. You got to be able to predict what speed the person's going to go at and put the correct angle on. I think that's the key.
I have been basically kind of like sighting in a gun, for instance, trying to get the perfect, because your camera is going to be sitting at a 20, 25, whatever it's at. And to have that perfect view of what your camera is looking at, you can't have it being exactly the same. You want it to have a little bit of a down tilt, like say you're 25 on one and 22 on the other one, just to get that perfect framing. That's just what I've experienced anyways.
So, I mean, the reason with this is that I never have a difference in angle between my FPV cam and the GoPro. Never. Yeah. That is like the sin of cinematic FPV, at least for me. Like, I can't do it. I'm sure there's people out there who can. I can't do it because what I see in my goggles needs to be what I see, needs to be what the GoPro sees. Otherwise, the frame is going to be off. And that's the cool thing about this is that you adjust it at the same time. So you don't have to go, oh, is this correct or not? I don't know. I'm just going to go. It is correct because it's, on the same platform.
It's the exact.
That makes so much sense because even like I was saying, a lot of us or majority of us are flying with the camera here and your GoPro here. And when I'm chasing dirt bikes, I feel like I'm close and I'm seeing the good shot. And then you'll go to get it on camera and you watch your GoPro and literally they'll hit the jump in exactly like you said. They'll come over the frame because my GoPro is not catching what my FPV cam is seeing.
It's so disappointing. And I've had that happen so many times because even with this setup, if I have a crash, sometimes this gets a little bit loose. And so this like down tilts a little bit. And since I'm used to just, throwing on a GoPro and going, not having it to adjust it, sometimes I notice it after I launch. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that could have been really bad.
How fragile is the front of that thing?
It's pretty fragile. I mean, you can see, I don't know if you guys have been noticing how deeply you've been looking into it, but this one's pretty busted.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I fly a lot, so I print out like 3 of those every week. But part of the reason why I do that is I use freestyle as a form of training, but I always practice with the snowy rig that I have. Why do I do that? Because for me, it's all about capturing the shot, right? It's not about the flippy floppy stuff. So it's going to be much more difficult to do the flippy floppy stuff with a cinematic rig like this, with the dead cat setup. And especially when I don't have a GoPro in it, this is very, very back heavy. Like the center of gravity is right here. This is ridiculous. So that makes it more challenging to fly freestyle. But when it's harder to fly like that when you're practicing, it becomes much easier when you're actually on a shoot because you're like, oh, okay, this is like, I've been practicing this. This is a lot easier. So that's
that
kind
framing is freaking genius. I'm gonna tell you that right now because
So
I just did a monster truck thing, and a lot of the times, especially with a big subject like that, it was really hard to keep the perfect frame or perfect shot on that.
for
So,
sure. Yeah.
So
I can-
Z Carl's ass. I'm thinking I said it right based on he said to say Carl's ass quickly. So Z Carl's ass. And that's the best I can do. Sorry. He says that he's going to design you something better. And he actually said earlier in the chat he does some designing for Newbie Drone.
That'd
So
be
hit him
awesome.
up. He says he's
That'd be
got you.
super
He's going to be
sick.
your man in the chair. And
That'd
he
be
wants to
super
talk
sick.
to you about getting some stuff set up for sure.
Yeah, because I've been using this Ichabod frame by Andy Shen for, since I began. And I've ran through a lot of these. There are some changes that I definitely want to make, but I think I'm excited. It's just so much fun in FPV and just the cinematic aspect of it. I can talk about it for days.
so what is your favorite video?
That I've
you
made.
have?
That was my next
Yeah.
question, you jerk.
That's really hard. My favorite video.
What's your favorite thing you've filmed so far if you can't pick a favorite edit?
I really like filming base jumper. There's just
I can tell.
It's
You've
so
got so many of them.
just a certain excitement about it. And I mean, ever since the get-go in Idaho, when I first did the technique where I was basically under the jumper and I asked them to jump onto my drone. I'm like, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen. You're going to give me the 3 pumps in the air to let me know that you're ready to go. And then once you go, I'm going to position myself directly where you're falling. Don't freak out. If anything happens, I'm going to bail. But let's make that happen. And just, I love capturing that because it almost feels like time just slows down for
Right
that
here.
few
That is
seconds while you're trying to
insane.
capture it. Like, I love it so much. That's probably my favorite stuff to film for sure.
This stuff's nuts too.
Yeah, that one was super fun as well. There's like a lot of slackliners. So this was actually during the turkey boogie, but this is like the slackliner portion of it.
Is this in Zion?
No. This is it's near Moab. It's not a park. Otherwise, we'd not be able to do all the crazy stuff that people get away with over there. But that place is called the Fruit Bowl.
I've heard of the Fruit Bowl. They got like crazy like spider webs and stuff there too, don't they?
Yes. So they actually didn't set that up for last year because of COVID and not, technically the event was called off, but people still showed up. So I showed up for the base jumping stuff. I didn't really know much about the whole slackliner segment of it, but when there was some bad winds for base jumping, I just decided to come through, and it was super fun. Got to meet some really exciting people.
I hate power lines.
I'm just making a note here. So Zach he says he wants to design a framer set up with air brakes.
Air brakes?
Yeah, that's what he's saying he wants to work on.
What are air brakes?
I know what air brakes are in a car.
There's air brakes in a car?
I'm not quite sure what air brakes are.
I don't know what it is in a drone. Jake, Google. Jake has the Google system. Because with the green screen, we can see it, right?
Now I'm curious. Now I want to know.
Yeah, it's a friction brake used in cars. Well, in vehicles.
Interesting.
So a friction system, I'm assuming he means to maybe slow your motor down if necessary.
Like flaps to deploy to add drag. So is that, I'm assuming that Zach's talking about maybe to film base jumpers with that setup. Is that correct?
They've got like a 10-minute or 5 to 10 minute delay between us talking and what they hear.
Oh, really? Okay.
Jack Fu says air brakes is back pitch. Flaps to add drag is what he's saying to me too, yeah.
So this, basically.
One sec, I gotta make you full screen. There you go.
I've never seen something like that before. That is so interesting.
And he says, yeah, bingo. So he's saying, yeah, for base jumping.
So for base jumping, I would actually not use a setup like that, and I'll explain why. So whenever you're filming base jumpers, you want to make sure that you fall with them for as long as possible. And if you have an air brake setup, then they're gonna be falling faster than you at a certain point, and you're not gonna get the shot because they're just gonna fly too far away from you. So what I actually do to mitigate that is I try to have less brake. So I'll have for just the idle mode of my props, I'll tune that down to like 2% or less. The lower I can go and still feel comfortable that the ESCs aren't gonna mess up in the sky, it's just gonna fall out, the better, because there's less resistance and I can fly with them, further. And
so at 2%, it still maintains that balance on the
it
PIDs?
still maintains it. Yeah, if you're running even bi-blades with a 6-inch or 5-inch, 2%, it should still maintain it. At least it does for me. You definitely want to play around with it, because when Carter and I built that 10-inch setup, we crashed like 4 or 5 times because we had it set up for the same idle rate as we did on our 6 inches. And when you're running a 10-inch prop, it basically spinning so slow, you can like stick your finger in it. So when we were going into dives, the ESCs would lose sync and it would just fall out of the sky. So for bigger setups, you got to make sure you boost that up a little bit. But for smaller ones, it works. So the other thing I do is I fly with bi-blades instead of tri-blades when I film base jumpers, because I feel like that's also less resistance. So I can fly more naturally or fall more in sync with them. But I've I don't know if that's just a theory or not. I kind of tried testing it out in my last base jumping video. I didn't really notice much of a difference, but I'm thinking about just doing more like in-depth study into the matter, because there's a difference when you're flying bi-blades or tri-blades.
So he's saying his idea would be like a split rudder or a split ailerons, and it would be deployable. Why can't I speak tonight? My words, they just don't form.
Interesting. Yeah,
I think it's something you should definitely talk to him and work with him and see what he thinks and pick his brain. Because honestly, I think you both have some great things you can contribute and make each other better, right?
I think there might be a use case for that for sure. And I want to explore something like that. I think it'd be interesting to see.
There was a question that was asked for you.
You're the one.
Sorry, Jake, repeat.
Right?
What was the question?
The full size camera on this. What is that? A 6-inch drone, 7-inch drone.
That's the 10.
That's the Shen drone's thick. That's a 7-inch.
Okay.
Wow.
Octocopter. So the camera on that is the Panasonic GH5. So I just put that on temporarily. I'm gonna invest in something different here pretty soon. The reason that I don't want to use my GH5 is, first, I've had it for 3 years and I kind of have some good fond memories with that camera, so I don't want to trash it just yet. And the second is it has in-body image stabilization. It has IBIS. And this is something that I didn't realize when I first threw it on the drone. I was like, why does this footage look like shit? Why is it so jittery even though I'm already stabilizing it using SetXP? And the reason why it looked bad is because when you have internal image stabilization, even when you turn it off, whenever you're going to be shaking that camera, those little gyros that move the sensor around aren't locked into place. So they're going to be jittering around as well, which is going to ruin your footage. So that's why you want something that doesn't have it. Unless it's in-body stabilization is so good that it's able to counteract the drone stuff, but I haven't come across a camera with that yet. Well, besides the GoPro, of course.
Right.
That's so cool.
Sorry, I'm just checking out your stuff. That's so nuts. You live in Denver?
Boulder.
Boulder.
But I'm out in Denver.
You ever been to
So
Montana?
Jack Fu wants to know what the coolest opportunity FPV has given you.
Coolest opportunity.
Sorry, Jake.
It's a good question. I feel like everything that I've done has only been possible through FPV. I mean, like all this kind of stuff, like it's exciting to have people like reach out to you and want to do stuff with you. I think the coolest opportunity hasn't really, in terms of a gig, hasn't really come out yet. I've been reached out to by like so many like big companies at this point, and like every time we're starting to plan something, something falls through, and it is like, oh man, it's like this is the one where I finally am gonna have, you know, a decent gig, where I finally get a real job with a major company and a major brand. And then like a week before the shoot, COVID happens. Like a week before the shoot, you know, we couldn't get the drone approved to fly at that ski resort. It's just stuff like that happens all the time. But as far as just, you know, shoots for fun, I don't know, probably the bush plane stuff. Just because we basically just hung out for like a 3-day period. We did very little flying with the drone. We just flew all over Arizona, landing in random airports, random dirt strips in the middle of nowhere, just having a blast. And probably
This is a real plane.
That's a real plane. That's a RV-8.
I swear, the first time I watched this, I didn't notice the gentleman actually moving inside the cockpit, and I totally thought that was RC.
It kind of looks like an RC, doesn't it?
It does. It looks itty bitty, especially from this point of view here. Like I've seen some big RCs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Sorry.
I agree, Jack Fu. Jack Fu's saying it's the first guest that's actually silenced this channel because your footage is so badass.
Dude, for real. like that stuff's insane. Where's Drew at?
Somatic wants to know when you're filming. He might be here silently. Sorry, one of my cats is deciding to dig to China through the litter box, so it's a little loud. But yeah, Somatic wanted to know when you're filming the Lifter Fire Poi collab.
Oh yeah, so that's funny. I think this was a few months ago. Cameron reached out and he's like, "Yo, dude, we should film something for this music video." And we ended up filming it, and like the musician ended up using that footage, but I don't know. I never stabilized the footage. I never I don't know. I was just a lot of stuff that I was filming at that point, just kind of forgot about it. And so he reached out again and you're like, "Yo, dude, we should do something with the Lifter." So definitely want to do that, but I still need to I have the setup right here with me. Boom. This thing is heavy. But before I fly around people with this, I want to make sure that everything is good. And I also want to get really good at it. So, because this feels a bit different to fly. And there's some issues that I want to tweak. But that's going to hopefully start to create more content with not just a GoPro. There are some huge perks to having a GoPro, and that's something that I'm not going to be letting go of anytime soon. Just because in order to fly around base jumpers with this, that's a lot of trust. And if something goes wrong, you could really mess up, you could kill someone. But with a little camera, little 6-inch with a GoPro on it, can you, cause some serious damage? You can, but the chance of that happening is significantly reduced.
So with your base jumpers, do you have to have special licensing or permission for that?
To base jump?
No, for filming the base jumpers.
Oh no, you don't have to have nothing.
You just have to be like, "Dude, can I film you?" And then you just
need to find a base jumper who is willing to fly with you. And I mean, oftentimes, even after you show them the footage, when you talk to them, they're still going to be like, "Nope, I don't want it. I'm not comfortable." But if you ever want to film something like that, what I really recommend is, even when you find a group of base jumpers, or maybe like a base jumper that is comfortable with you filming them, they might change their mind when they get to the top of the cliff. They're under a lot of pressure. You don't know what kind of winds they're dealing with up on the top. If there's a lot of winds, they might not even want to jump. It's a very unsafe sport, so to say. Okay, it's not unsafe. It's just there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risks that you got to keep in mind, and there's a lot of stuff that's going through their heads. So you need to make sure that you have some kind of motion for them to do in case they don't want you flying around you. And what we've done is that if they're at the top and they don't want the drone next to them, you just tell them to go like this with your arms, with their arms, and that way you know to pull away and just let them jump without.
So I'm gonna hit you up in the DMs all the time and be like, "Hey, when are we going base jumping? When are we gonna go film some base jumpers? When are we doing this, bro?"
Well, and to add to your point, it's not that it is definitely unsafe. Like, you take calculated risk, but the reason I think it's unsafe and agree to that comment you made is because there's like Eric Ronner,
Look at you.
People that don't know is a Nitro Circus personnel, I guess you could say, and he was one of like the hugest base jumpers. He base jumped inside a stadium. Like, he had a lot of following, and he passed away base jumping. So,
yeah, so
even when you focus and try and you make your calculated risk, right? I totally get it. The drones, it's an added factor they have no control over. So I can definitely see why that's a big risk for them.
100%. And, you know, if they don't know you, if they just met you, you know, a week or two ago and they haven't seen much of your footage, they don't know how FPV works. They think it's just like a Mavic that's going to be hanging around under them. And they're like, why is there a drone under me? I thought you were flying above me, like a normal drone. Just stuff like that you got to keep in mind for sure.
Zach wanted to know if you could talk more about the hoops you have to jump through to fly at the ski resort. Sorry, Jake, but we have to ask other people's questions. It can't just be you and me talking.
So a lot of ski resorts, they don't let you fly drones. It's just like, period, no drones at all in the US, which sucks because you want to do the stuff that people are doing in the Alps with the skiers. And you're just like, no, you can't do it. So with something like that, I don't have
Sorry,
that
did
much
they give you a reason why, or did they just say no?
No, it's just a no. You can't fly
It's
drones.
just-
They don't
yeah.
want to have a drone fall from the sky, just some random tourist with a drone falls from the sky, hits somebody in the eye, and the resort has to pay for that. They don't want
I'm
that to
only
happen.
laughing because you're assuming that our big drone is going to specifically find someone's eyeball, generally behind their goggles, because they're wearing ski or whatever goggles, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before. It happened in Las Vegas. There was some like a duo of drone operators that were flying like 4 or 5 drones up in the sky, which is not a good thing to do.
No.
And like one of them fell out and like hit somebody in the eye.
Wow.
And you have to like pay up for that. So that's what they're worried about. When you're flying commercially, you're of course going to have some kind of insurance policy to cover stuff like that. So I wouldn't hit up these ski resorts and be like, hey, I want to come fly out for fun and film my buddy over here. This would be something that I would do like from a business standpoint. So if there is a company that wants to do a shoot for a specific aspect, they would reach out to the ski resort. They would figure that out. They would have to get permission to film there on like a commercial shoot anyway, and having an extra drone there, that would just be the extra stuff. I do not know how to, go around that for just fun kind of flying.
I've debated on just bringing one up in my backpack while we're up boarding or something like that. And
I mean, you could do
just
it.
not saying anything.
You could do it. If they catch you, I don't know what they'll do. They'll probably take away your ski pass, which is another thing.
That's
Which is it
sacrifice
worth
I'd be
it?
willing to do.
It's
Like,
end of season.
I've had buddies that are like, yo, dude, you got to come out and film us. And I was like, okay. You're not allowed to fly drones there. They're like, oh shit, actually, never mind. I don't want them to take away my ski pass. It's like,
Right.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I wish that it's the same thing with speed flying. Like when I was a speed flyer, I guess I still am. I just don't have my gear because it kind of burned up. But they don't let you speed fly at ski resorts in the US because they think it's high risk. There's only very like specific ones that let you speed fly. And that's so sad because you're looking at all these, guys doing crazy speed riding in Europe. And I've always wanted to do that so bad. And ski resorts are perfect because you just go on a ski lift, go up to the top. You don't have to hike up for like half a day. But anyway.
Ryan, so Royal Mackenzie says Red Lodge Mountain doesn't own that land is what I think he's trying to say. It's U.S. Forest Service. So he says do it, I do. And then Ryan Carney, he's actually in Canada. He says the cost of his ski pass equals great footage. I'm in.
There you go. Got a little bit of rebellious spirit in here. I like that.
I gotta go ask. There's like 2 ski hills not that far from us, and we actually know someone that works at one. But I live in Canada, and our mountains are not mountains. We have hills that people ski on, okay? So you thought the other ones you saw were bad? Like, these are hills.
Which part of Canada do you live in?
So I'm in Ontario.
Is that on the... Sorry,
that's the east side. Okay. So we're kind of like, it goes like the Maritimes, Quebec, us, and then the other provinces west.
That makes sense.
So Quebec has some really cool spots, and they've got like Mount Tremblay and like stuff like that. But with COVID, we can't even really travel provincially right now. It's so strict.
You can travel provincially?
Not really, no. So if you travel between provinces, they still want you to quarantine. And certain areas, especially like Quebec, because we don't speak French and we can't pass as someone who's Quebecois, they would like kick you out, and they won't sell to you. They won't serve you. You're not allowed in stores or gas stations. Anything that's considered a risk of transmission, like even certain cities in Ontario are now saying they don't want you having a job, say in Muskoka if you live in Barrie, because that's contaminating the area. So they're trying to tell employers where to hire people from now. It's like, It's honestly insane. And the ski hills actually just opened, I think, last week for the first time all winter. It's the first time they allowed them to open during COVID.
Wow.
It's been brutal.
Not bad in Canada. I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't have the FAA to deal with, so that's a plus, right?
Well, I heard that the Canadian equivalent is pretty scary too. I heard that they try to find the Team Black Sheep founder for like a crazy sum of money.
Trappy, probably.
Trappy, yeah.
I mean, my understanding, so that's different. From my understanding, Trappy, it's more based on the products he's producing.
Oh. Okay.
So I think him being a developer and producer is different. Whereas like Ryan and I, again, because Ryan's in Ontario, if I go fly something I can get in trouble for, I have to be snitched. And that person has to know a lot of details, and then maybe eventually they'll get to it. But even if we're flying and a Karen gets upset and calls the police just show up and are like, well, we're not Transport Canada, so we have no say, but, behave. And then they usually escort her, because in Canada, it's actually illegal to interfere with a drone pilot. It's a federal offense because we are treated the same as a pilot. So I can actually have them arrested for harassing me while I'm flying. So there's a lot of really cool random shit.
That'd be nice.
And it takes like 3 days for Transport Canada to show up. You're not going to still be at the same scene in 3 days. So, but you can get charged. I know people that have been charged. It can happen, but it's super rare. And they're never just going to show up while you're flying.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the resources.
Interesting.
Ryan's saying, yeah, it's messed up in Quebec. Slat says he lives in Vegas. The next time he's out your way, he wants to do a collab with you.
Dude, if you got some spots we could freestyle on. I'm kind of new to the freestyle game. So I don't know. I'm not super good yet. And also I fly my cinematic stuff for freestyle. But I've been trying to explore more of that, because I think that in order to be good cinematic pilot, being good at freestyle is kind of a must.
I agree. I think I'm leaning more to cinematic now too. I've kind of done the flippy floppies, and realistically, there's no business side to that. But I think that racing helps with your ability to get in those tighter areas or hit the better, like, specific gaps. And freestyle, I think, helps with your backwards flying and certain, again, flows or rolls, like how you rolled out of certain shots you were doing, right? That's more the freestyle aspect. But I think it all cohesively fits together, and each area makes you better overall, right?
I agree. And racing is one of those things that I just haven't had much experience with. So I'm kind of leaning more towards the freestyle side and the cinematic side. But I think if you want to be a well-rounded pilot, you got to be good at all of them. And there's certain things that all provide you with. But if you want to focus on the cinematic side, in either of those segments, you want to make sure that whatever you do is very smooth. So what I've seen a lot of freestyle stuff and freestyle pilots, oftentimes a lot of flippy floppy stuff that I do is very, very jagged, a bit too fast. And so the eye, like us as FPE pilots, we're able to capture that and we're able to see that way. But I've talked to people who have no experience with FPV, just the general public. When they look at footage like that, they get dizzy. They don't like it. That's not something that'll sell. So for racing or freestyle, just focus on being smooth in what you do. I guess is my tip.
When you coming to Montana?
Montana. In the summer, probably. I feel like it's way too cold now.
It isn't right now. It's like 40 and 50 degrees. It's got to be about the same
Really?
as Denver. Yeah.
All right. I should be ashamed of being Russian that I'm talking about the cold like that.
I was going to say, man, like, bro.
No, I definitely
Nanoshock.
there.
Nanoshock says he has a farm upstate New York with 580 acres. Let him know if you go to New York and you want to fly.
That'd be awesome. But that's very far.
It's not that far.
From Colorado?
That's like 1,300 miles.
It's like a couple hours for me. Maybe two. Yeah,
well, okay.
Jordan Howard, Blue Mountain, one big, really blue hill. And Blue Mountain, you can't fly. It's all residential now. It's such BS when you drive along the Blue Mountain. It's all housing and cottages and resorts, and it's just not even. It's stupid now. Sorry, not to get totally sidetracked like a dog going squirrel and seeing all these other things popping up.
I just want to say that I judge distance by how many days of road travel it'll take for me to get there.
So you could fly it faster.
Well, no, I don't. But see, there's downside.
He's got his rig that he drives. You got to pay. You got to drive the rig.
When you drive over, you have so much more stuff. You have your gear bag. You can bring a lot of stuff. If I were to just fly over to some place and stay for a week there and like film something, I'd actually have to think about what I throw in my bag. I don't have to think about it. I just grab whatever I see, throw it in the back of my truck, and I'm good to go.
It's not that far, though. Come on. If I can drive it in a couple hours, it can't be that far.
How far it is. I'm going to look that up right now.
It's like 1,300
Type in like
miles.
Syracuse, New York or something, because I'm assuming that's what he means when he says upstate is like Syracuse or something close to us. Chronix and I are so in. We were supposed to do a road trip last year, but then the stupid COVID BS, right? So as soon as these all lift, we're totally in for a U.S. road trip.
Oh, 2,000 some miles.
I don't know how many kilometers that is.
Now you're going to make me convert it.
All right, so that's 1 day and 4 hours of driving. That's
not that bad. You could fly on the way.
Driving. That's
fly
just
on the way.
New York City. I guess that's not too bad, but we're talking about like where are you driving for 28 hours? You're driving through some flat lands that for somebody who's in Colorado, I tend to not go out east that much. Although I did do a shoot in Texas next to the Mexico border.
That's pretty cool.
It was interesting.
Anyone have any questions for Nico? Because we will be ending here in about half an hour. So any questions? I do have more written down, but I can't type either. Everyone knows what that meant. Who inspires you as a pilot?
As a pilot, I think there's, well, I'm going to say Johnny, of course. He's done some really interesting stuff. I think Vanover, I think he's really starting to get into the cinematic side of things. I don't know. I saw a story on his Instagram where he shared Michael Bay's video, and he's like been doing some fun stuff for the past 6 months or something. So that'd be something that somebody should ask him if he's actually working with Michael Bay. That'd be crazy. I also really like what Beverly Hills Aerials are doing with NASCAR. They're doing the live streaming. I think it's really, just being able to get that much exposure, and people are starting to, there is going to be a day when FPV is going to be a household term. I feel like we're not there yet. Most people like FPV are like, what is that? But we're getting there. And I think with companies like Beverly Hills Aerials and Peacemaker Filmworks, when they start to throw that into movies and commercials, and you start seeing it live streamed, what Gab 707 did with the skiing stuff, I forgot who he did that for, but that's the kind of stuff that is really broadening what the public sees about FPV and what they think about it. So those are the people that really inspire me to continue moving into that direction.
Somatic wants to know if you are hiring for Carter's position. See, words again.
Well,
he says he'll work for footage.
Well, we don't really make money with what we do here. It's just for the passion of FPV and to see how far we can go with FPV and see what we can do. So there's not really such a thing as hiring, I'd say, at FPV Films. But I don't know. FPV Films is kind of in limbo right now since Carter left. Still trying to figure out what we're going to do with it. I like the branding aspect of it. I want it to stand for something. I want it to be...
Do you know Somatic by chance?
I do.
Okay, I was wondering.
But yeah.
Jackson wanted to know, did you start in film or FPV? And I think you touched on this at the beginning, but we can do a recap for him.
So I actually started in film, and to go a little bit more in depth on that, I've always been super into filmmaking, and my first job was actually a videographer for a small photography video studio in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's called FOCO, and we used to go out and film weddings, wedding videos, like music videos, small scale commercials, like really stuff like that. And that's where I got my start in editing. Started editing a lot of stuff for them. And that's when I first got my start in drones as well, because they had a little Phantom that I would every once in a while fly for like a very specific use case. But back then I thought it was super boring. I still do. I just think Mavics and Phantoms are boring. It just doesn't excite me. I'm serious. Like
I get it. I think there's a niche for it, obviously, and there's certain people that it appeals to because it's a little bit simpler. Like it is 100% simpler than FPV and what you're doing, where you're controlling every single movement. And even honestly, I see shots from them and I'm like, all you did is took a still image. Like we do that all the time too, right?
It helps me a lot at work.
It depends on your job, which actually I know of a job in the US currently looking to pay people as part of a contract job for cell phone towers or something like that. Okay. And they require a 107. So if anyone needs that, reach out to me and I will put you in touch with the person that is in charge of that, because they're hiring currently. I don't know if he gave me any more information than that at this point. Let me go see if I can find it in this chat here. So you have to have a DJI Phantom 4 Pro. They have over 12,000 telecom sites they need to fly around the country. They're recruiting for networking right now. It pays about $3,000 to $5,000 a week, depending on the motivation level of the pilot. And they need about 15 people. So
they need 15 people?
They're looking for 15 people.
A one-person job. Like, that's me. I love Phantoms.
So I actually recommended you and Jake already, and another guy that I know that does it professionally, but unfortunately he's in Canada. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. And yeah, reach out on the side and I'll put you in touch with that person or put them in touch with you. But I think it's a good opportunity for any of you guys with those DJI drones that fit the requirements to make some extra money.
I don't have any more DJI stuff. I sold it all once I got into FPV.
Honestly, I love my DJI FPV. So that's like the only DJI I'm doing.
I haven't gotten the goggles yet, but I'm thinking about ordering some Air.
Bro, I will tell you right now, and I know everybody who has the DJI FPV stuff is already been just blasting you about it probably, but flying analog inside of the stadium where I did the monster trucks just last weekend, analog was okay. It was super sketch at best at some places just because there's so much metal. I mean, I had direct line of sight everywhere in the stadium.
Yeah.
But the DJI was freaking flawless. However, long range stuff, it still sketches me out a little bit.
The DJI does, sorry? I was replying to a comment. I agree with that.
How far are you comfortable going long range with your DJI setup?
3K.
Actually, Royal. I just because of what I've seen. Royal, my buddy, he's actually down in here. Adida FPV. He blacked out. I would say a mile away from us.
No way. I can go 1.9 with True RC antennas. With True RC antennas.
Do you remember my little TikTok that I made?
No, I don't watch TikTok. I don't have TikTok.
Oh my gosh. I made a series of TikToks all within an hour or so because I couldn't get up a mountain. I was in flip-flops stupidly, but I couldn't get up this mountain with all this fallen rock and everything. And Royal was gone for like hour and a half maybe, just looking for his drone. I felt horrible because like he could have been eaten by a cougar.
So yeah, I don't have these problems. I upgraded to the True RC MX Air patch on my goggles, and I'll use both patches if I'm doing long range, or I use one patch and the 2 DJI stock antennas. And then I use the True RC antennas on my drone, and I actually just changed to like a really long SMA one because the SMA is so much better. But yeah, it's just I don't have problems. But yeah, it's like 3K I think is the max I'd be comfortable, which is 1.9 miles when I just converted it in Google.
Damn,
so
that's not bad at all.
No, and Jet FPV's been on this show. If you go back to like our old YouTube videos from last season, and he actually goes into quite a lot of detail of how he uses DJI to film mountains and all kinds of stuff he does. And a lot of it is just positioning yourself and consciously deciding and thinking about, okay, how does the signal transmit? Where is it going? How am I going to get the best signal? Pretty much the same as everything, right? It's just a little bit more thought.
Okay, so this is a horrible view, but this is the mountain. Oh my gosh, that's not going to work, is it?
I can sort of see it.
This is the mountain he lost his on for a minute.
Can you like bring it back a little bit? So, there we go. Now I can focus on that.
Here, I can make it bigger so you don't have to we don't all have to stick our face in our cameras.
That looks like a pretty gnarly mountain. You had to hike that?
Yeah, he had to hike this stuff to find his. This is my footy. This is where I did fine, but I was using analog. I guess that's probably 2 miles, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I would say that's got to be at least.
Looks quite a ways away.
Yeah, come on, that's
Let's
got to
see.
be.
When I turn at the top, you'll be able to see the bottom for a brief second, I think. Oh, this one isn't even to the top. Oh gosh, right there. Down by that road is where we were, like down here somewhere. Whoa, going the wrong way.
Wow.
But yeah, I couldn't get up that part of it with my But he was gone for like an hour and a half.
And you didn't help him?
I tried to tread up the hill, but I stupidly wore flip-flops and
No, I get it.
yeah, like my feet started, like I'm a fat guy. My feet sweat, my pits sweat, everything sweats. That was horrible. I didn't say that. Why are you focused on me?
Because I never went back because I'm on a different browser trying to see the actual range DJI is saying that they can go.
4 kilometers.
So I was trying to find an actual answer here.
4 kilometers.
Yeah, so that's what they're saying, right?
Yeah, uninterrupted.
What do you guys think about the privacy
So
stuff?
that would be 2.48 or 2.49 miles. Sorry.
Okay. That's as far as you typically need.
Out of the box. I guess, well, with the narco hack or whatever it is.
Okay, so what was your question?
I was going to bring up just the whole privacy stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen, like in the
with DJI
FPV groups, people are like, hey, why is my DJI contacting warehouses in California? Why does it require so many permissions when I install it?
I don't have any of those issues.
Really?
Yeah. I have a first one, like a first version, V1. So my activation already happened, and I've literally never plugged it in the computer since. I think I plugged it in to do one update, and then you don't do anything.
I did the 1200 milliwatt update, and I haven't touched it since. As far as
okay, that's good. That's good. I thought this was like one of those things that you had to update all the time, and like a Tesla, constantly need to update it, you know. And I don't like that. I like the manual stuff. I drive a stick shift, and I think I will for a while. I just like to have more control over my vehicle.
Yeah, you don't have to update it. I mean, if you don't update it, you're losing certain benefits. I still fly an air unit that's not updated, and every time I turn on the drone, it's like, warning, this version does not match. And I just hit ignore and keep flying, and it works fine. So it's because you have to update the air unit and the goggles separately. But what I think is cool is, like, even with the hack, it's an SD card and a note file. So all you do is type narco power, and that's literally it. And it's on an SD card in your goggles, and that hacks them so that you can have the certain milliwatts that they couldn't release. So that doesn't involve me giving anything to DJI. And I do think a lot of it's paranoia spurred by your US government because, you know, China's bad. That's their whole premise. And anything out of China is spying on you and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, if you're carrying one of these around, guys, they already fucking know. Everyone knows where you are. Everyone knows what you're doing. You've already agreed to a gazillion things I guarantee you didn't read as closely as that DJI thing. So unless you're doing something very illegal, you have no reason to be afraid of DJI.
FPVT wants to know, in your 1 year of FPV, or in your year of FPV, where have you spent your most of your focus?
As far as shoots, or as far as just training? As far as where I want to go from here?
Yeah, that was kind of loaded. But where do you want to go from here?
Where do I want to go from here? The moon. I want to go everywhere.
Fuck right.
I guess I can answer that by kind of going through the stages of what I focused on. I think from the very get-go, what I was focused on was formation flying. And that really impacted the kind of flying that I started to do later. Because like I mentioned earlier, when you're chasing drones, it's really hard. It's a lot easier to chase a motorcycle. It's a lot easier to chase anything other than a drone, because drone's just as fidgety as you are in the sky. So that was like the first focus. Then it was just trying to see how many different like extreme shoots I can go on, what kind of creative stuff I can do. So base jumping, speed flying, paragliding, just going into all these different extreme sports, reaching out to all these people. And a lot of them like I've known for a while because like I started paragliding with them, so we learned together. Now I think it's more focused on what kind of camera can I throw onto here and accomplish the same stuff. So I think in this segment of my progression, I'm starting to get into the cine-lifter aspect of it. Can I replicate the content that I've done before and improve on it by using more fancy cameras that are heavier? Or are there limitations to that? You know, what can I do with a cine-lifter that I can't do with a GoPro? Why should I risk, you know, something expensive if I could just do it with the GoPro and it's safer for everyone? But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think there's going to be more innovation as we go along. I just feel like I'm in this for the long run. I just think there's so much different things you can do with FPV, and I think we're only getting started. We're only getting started. Like every day I go out and practice, I learn something new. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know about that. It's like just flying by yourself at a random location. Just learn. Every week.
With the FAA regulations, the new ones coming out and everything, as far as like the remote ID and stuff, how much do you think that's going to affect you and what you do on this in this aspect?
Well, they're not going to become effective until like a year or two down the road. So I'm not really spending too much time thinking about that. But I think it's one of those things that like it'll be like what DJI's already have. Like if you launch a Mavic or a Phantom in Las Vegas on the Strip, they're going to know about it. Mm-hmm. And they're going to call the cops and they're going to show up because you're not allowed to fly there because McCarran Airport's nearby. There's already stuff out there that can see that you're launching a DJI drone. And that's part of the reason why I kind of haven't done much stuff with the air unit yet or the goggles, because I don't want to have, whenever I launch anywhere, to have that pop up on someone's screen. That's I just
so you know, I did tear this apart.
What's that?
I did tear this apart, and the only transmitters I found in here or receivers I found in here were for a receiver or for video. That's all I found so far.
And I think part of the reason why, like in Las Vegas, if you were to fly Mavic, that happens is because you're flying using your phone and you're flying using the app on your phone.
That's true. That's true.
So that's why it's going on. But I'm honestly not too scared about it because hopefully by that point, maybe a year or two down the road into my FPV journey, I won't have to worry about going to sketchy places to shoot, sketchy stuff. Hopefully I'll have like a little bit more clout maybe and get to work with companies where they organize all that for you. At least that's my hope. But yeah, I'm not too worried about it as a whole, just because I think it's something that you're probably going to be able to take off your drone. Like how are you going to be able to, like, you could probably build an FPV drone without it. You won't be able to use it for commercial use.
Yeah,
if
we already do.
It's not going to be like, it's not going to be a good thing. Every single state in the US requires you to register your drone. How many of you guys registered your drone? There you go. So it's one of those things. I wouldn't be too stressed about it.
All of your drones, Jake? Every single one? Only one. Okay. Royal wants to know if you hike and if there's any places you recommend for backpacking in Colorado.
For backpacking, I don't really hike. I stopped hiking when I started speed flying. And let me explain that. So in order to speed fly, you need to hike, but you only hike one way, right? You hike to the top and you fly down. So ever since then, I was like, hiking? Nah, this ain't fun. But now since I got into FPV, I'm like, I don't even have to hike halfway up and then fly down. I could just fly from the bottom and fly down. So I guess I need to stop being so lazy.
I would say lazy is not something I would think would fit you because you have an entire fitness section on your Instagram.
Yeah, I was gonna say, dude. Like, I was gonna warn everybody at the beginning of the show, y'all. If you have your significant other on the show, make sure that the wife leaves the room. Don't be jealous, dude. You have a massive, like, you are fit. Like, I hate to say this. I mean, nothing weird about this, but wow, bro.
Thanks, dude. I mean, I still think I'm pretty skinny. Like, I want to improve a little bit. I just don't have I don't have a lot of time. So,
okay, wait. Can I ask how old you are? I wasn't going to ask on air, but now I'm going to ask. How old are you? Yeah, you're a fucking baby. You've got lots of time. Seriously.
Yeah. The way I see it, it's like, it's one of those things, like, I work from 9 to 5, and then from 5 to like 2 in the morning, I try to do FPV stuff. But I try to squeeze in at least an hour a day of just some kind of fitness activity, just to keep myself like from going insane.
I know you
I'm
feel
old
like
and
you're
fat.
running
I
out of
cannot
time.
do this.
Yeah, I'll make him big while I say this. I know that you think you're running out of time, but when you hit like 28, 29, get back to me. Because the amount you age and mature in that period and actually realize how young you were at 23, it's obscene. Like, everything clicks as you get closer to 30 and you're like, wow, I really didn't know shit. So you've got tons of time. Tons of time.
That's good to know. But this is the last thing I expected to be shared.
Oh, yeah, no. If it's on Instagram, you're like...
Well, here's the cool thing, though. The cool thing is you're not just an FPV pilot. This is something you do, man. And
if you guys
take pride in it.
Cool, you should check out my brother, because my brother, like, he's actually jacked. I'm nowhere
Jake,
close.
why don't you pull up his brother?
So the last video on my YouTube channel, you'll see like the first 10 seconds of it.
Oh, he's the
just
one
my
riding
brother
the
working
skateboard.
out. Yeah.
Oh, it's your actual brother. I thought you were saying brother like
get
friend.
To the very first part of this video.
Here, I'm gonna go this way and then this way.
So look at that. He's jacked.
Yeah, but okay, he looks like he's 33. How old is he?
He's I think he's 30.
Yeah, see? You've got tons of time.
Fair enough.
Never give up. I'm sure you don't seem like the kind to give up anyway, but you'll get there.
I need to throw away these then.
Yeah, no more Twinkies for Jake. Every show he's sitting here eating and just... Jack Fu has a man crush on you, he said.
Oh man,
What's up, Relentless? Awesome. Good for you, man.
that's an honor. I feel so worthy now that I have someone having a man crush on me.
I think you've got a couple. Jake was fanboying you a little bit too.
I was not. I was not.
He's like, he told his wife to leave. He's like, just don't come to this show. Don't pay attention to this video.
You guys need to stop all this fitness talk, because then I'm gonna end up posting like some more fitness stuff on my channel.
That's not a bad thing though. Again, like Jake said, it's part of who you are, right? Like your cat and your love for the cat, right? That's just part of your character and who you are. And the more humanized you make yourself, I think the more opportunities you get in the way because you're more approachable, right? Whereas a lot of these people, like we get asked all the time, how are we talking to Chad Capper? Or how are we talking to Drew? Or, you know, how do we talk to these people? You just do. They're just people. Just reach out, right?
100%. And I think that's really the motivating part of, you know, starting the vlog aspect of this YouTube channel, is that I felt like I was limiting myself by just sharing the actual cinematic content. There's so much that goes on. There's so many adventures that I have when I'm on these shoots, like the randomest things you can think of. It's just, I wanted to share that with people, and I wanted them to kind of experience it with me. And I also wanted to practice my, you know, camera speaking skills, because I think I don't have like a knack for that. Even though I do sales, when you're doing sales, it's like different than speaking to a camera, because you got to kind of just think of something on the fly and like keep it interesting and tell a story.
Speaking of though, this video is actually really cool because not only are you speaking English to the camera, but you're speaking Russian to your brother over here.
Thanks, dude. Thanks. So
and that's cool.
On including that, because I was like, all right, bro, we're gonna be doing this for YouTube, so let's just speak English. But we couldn't, because we only speak Russian to each other. So it just felt really awkward. And whenever I wanted to tell him something, I was just like, all right, I'm just going to tell in Russian. I don't even care. But
which was really cool. And I like the way that you actually put up, like, where is it? Right. Oh, come on. In a few seconds, it shows up. Like it right here. You actually caption it yourself. That's so cool. I dig that. I think that's pretty, what do you call it? I can't even think of the word. Something not a lot of people do.
Effort?
No. It's like individual. It's special. It's
unique.
Oh, I can't remember the word. I'm done.
Well, I really like that you guys enjoyed that. I was
Jake, if you're trying to find a word, a trick my grandma taught me is go through the alphabet. So go A, and then think of A's. Okay, it's not that word. B, and then go through your head and think of B's. Okay, C, and like that's how she remembers things. Like even people's names, she'll sit there and be like, A, Anna, no. B, Becky, no, that doesn't sound right. C, and she'll work her way through.
Unique.
I said unique. I definitely
said
said
unique. I didn't hear you say unique at all.
That's great, because at least it's recorded and we can just play it back later, and I'll send you the clip where I'm like, hey, I did.
All right.
Did you just say I did, Nico?
Yeah, I can stand witness to that.
That's twice Kat's been right tonight, okay? This is a record.
Okay, selective hearing. And what was the other time you were right?
FPVT says I was right that he needs to show more diversity and be more than just FPV.
Exactly.
In order to succeed.
She's right. I said that.
You can put it in writing, man. We can leave that up there for the rest of the show, actually. See, he thought you were going to say original.
Original and unique. Yeah, no, they're both very good. I think that's an amazing way to go. Very clever.
Yeah, Rob's like original. Original's the word. The shit we end up in debates about. So what are your goals then with FPV now? Like, what would you say your number one goal is?
Just to be better than what I was yesterday. I want to keep improving. For me, it's like a challenge to see how far I can take this. If it's working with Red Bull for something, so be it. If it's working with, I don't know, Michael Bay, let's do it. But I want to keep pushing myself. I think there's so much potential. And I think that, you know, I just want to live my life to the fullest. And I feel like this is the way to do it for me. I've never been so passionate about anything else besides FPV. I think combines the two things that I love doing out of everything else, which is flying and filmmaking into the perfect combination that I can just play with for hours, thousands of hours.
So
And editing, because you like editing clearly.
Well, yeah,
You're
I guess
good
it's
at
the
it.
filmmaking part, right?
Yeah,
And-
you're really good at editing for sure. And I honestly, for me, that's the hardest part. I find like I'll do all day filming the dirt bikes because Rich rides. So I'm always at dirt bike tracks. Like as soon as the snow's gone, especially, he's always there. So I'm always there. And I film everyone and everything. And then you get home and you're like, okay, I have 20 hours of footage to go through. Not happening. And I just bury it, right? Like I have so many files I've never even looked at because I'm like, nothing special, right? Or you don't feel like there's anything specific you wanted.
100%.
You ever actually like get home with all your footage and like get it all off the SD card, click properties, and then you're like, oh my God, there is 50, 60 gigs of footage here that you have to sift through to find exactly what you want.
I mean, you definitely get that. And especially since, when you're running real steady, you got to stabilize every single second.
Oh,
so
like
takes
8
a
windows
while.
open at one time.
Yeah. So my computer like overheats all the time. I have to like
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at you stalling the bike and how you added the laughing face.
But yeah, it's definitely very time consuming, but I like it. For me, it's like it takes your minds off of things, and when you're creating something, it's just something totally different. There are stuff that I edit where I'm just like, oh, I don't want to edit this, but overall, it's enjoyable for sure.
FPVT wanted to know how you sustained your backwards flight while filming.
I don't know. I hit the ground a few times, and I did have a little bit of practice when I was in Phoenix for like a couple packs. I was trying to do it, and I crashed into this fence. I was like pretending that this fence was a motorcycle, and I was flying alongside it, but it had like gates on the side that cut out. It wasn't like a straight fence. It was like a construction fence. It was like jagged. So I kept hitting that fence and busting up my drone. So I don't know. It's definitely tricky, but I guess the trick is to just try it out a bunch of times in a location that you know very well. Because when you're flying backwards, you don't know. You can't see what's behind you. And I think that's the sketchiest part about it. So like it's best to have a spotter for that. I didn't, but I guess the biker counts as my spotter because I just told my brother, hey, listen, if you see anybody, just point. And as soon as you point at something, I'm going to boost out of there because I do not want to slam into a windshield going.
So I saw you comment, but why did you not put the GoPro on the back of your drone again and fly away from the bike? Like, why did you take the approach you went again?
So I've done that before where I attached it to the back and flew it that way. Carter and I actually used that technique to film the longboarder video, and we only got like 2 short segments out of that. The problem with that is, remember, like I said, the most important thing about cinematic FPV is framing. When you're flying with the GoPro attached behind you, you have no control over framing. So the only direction you can go is straight. And that's the only shot you can get where there's an object here and it's chasing you. That's it. But if you want to come around to the side of it and then film another side and then zoom around and do an orbit, you're stuck. You can't do it. So that's why flying backwards is the trick for that kind of footage.
That's got to be hard though, especially when you want to do the orbit and do the zoom up, because I mean, ultimately you're looking down.
Oh yes,
not up like a normal,
sure.
Like normal, you know.
The orbits are super trippy because usually, like, you're not pointing straight at the ground. You're like, am I flying a Phantom right now? Like, what is this? That's what it feels like. If you're just with that much negative tilt, whenever you're flying back and forth, if you're flying straight at a good enough speed, it just points straight at the ground. It feels so weird.
How do you say Carzyle's name?
He said you say it like Carhal's ass, but very quickly. Zach, Carhal's ass.
Carl's ass.
Carl's ass.
Carl's ass. Yeah.
How
I just said Carl's ass.
Longboarding. How did I meet Shaquille? Oh, basically what happened was I made that longboarding video with one of his friends, and I noticed that he must have commented something on Shaquille's jet video or something like that, or he might have followed me back or sent me a friend request or something. But I went through his Facebook feed and I saw that he does a lot of stuff with jets, like turbine jets, like RC jets with real jet engines in them. I was like, that is super cool. We could totally, create something with that. And so that ended up being a jet video. And I've never actually filmed him longboarding, but we've done a lot of stuff together for jet stuff.
That's very cool. So I know we're coming up to our closing here, and I think we got like maybe less than a minute here. But what is the best piece of advice that you could give any of the viewers in here for
Best
flying
piece of
FPV
advice.
or whatever it might be for you?
I think I've already said a lot of stuff about framing, so I probably shouldn't go into that. But I would say practice. And what I mean by that isn't just go out and fly and have fun. No. When you're really practicing, you're trying things that are difficult for you. So when you're flying and you know that you're bad at orbits, or you know that you're bad at one orbit, I can do counterclockwise, but clockwise, I suck at. Go out there and do that. That's what's going to make you good very fast. Because if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to progress. But once you start reaching out and trying new things that are challenging to you and you're scared, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my quad by doing this. Lose that quad, but you're going to gain that experience. So next quad, you're going to be able to pull it off.
I think that's amazing advice.
That's awesome.
You know what? You have such a professionalism compared to most new pilots that I think it's very
Thank you.
deceiving to people who've been doing this only a year. Like,
I appreciate that.
you are definitely, in my opinion, on Johnny's level. Like, your footage is on that
That means
level.
a lot.
Editing, like, if you put this next to a Johnny video and no one said it was yours, I don't think people would know, honestly.
Well, hopefully it's just not all talk. I do come from a sales background, so maybe I'm just the sleazy
good at
salesman.
selling
I'm just
yourself.
pretending that I'm professional and all, but in reality, I'm all talk. But
Well,
I really
think
appreciate
Hydro
that.
is right. You're an
That means a
inspiration,
lot.
man.
Thank you guys for inviting me on the show.
Sometime I will, whether I make it up there, you make it up here, we both in Utah or something.
I wanna make it up to Montana because I fly Utah all the time, I fly Arizona all the time, in California, but Montana is someplace that I've never flown.
Big Sky, Glacier, bro, the
Yeah.
Rocky Mountains.
Formation stuff there would be epic.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to get it. You got to build a 10-inch formation drone.
How about 7? 7's fine, right?
All right, we'll settle for 7.
I got that covered.
Well, thank you so much, Nico, for coming on the show. And thank you, everyone who watched. Special thank you to Val, FPV Mama, and Night Train for their PayPal donations. We really appreciate that. You guys did not have to do it, but we did listen to the request last week to throw a PayPal out there. So thank you guys so much for that. It helps cover our channel costs for sure, because it's a little bit more expensive than I think people realize running these shows. But again, Nico, thank you so much.
No,
I think
thank
you've
you guys.
provided
Thanks
a lot of insight.
for inviting me. I actually, when I saw that, I was like, "Are you guys for real? Like, am I really worthy to be?"
Oh, dude, absolutely.
Like, live streamed. I'm like, "Dang, okay." But
I just wanted you before anyone else found out and thought about it, right? Because I was like, I said it to you, like, can you come on my show, but don't go on anyone else's show, because you told me you had to do your setup first.
Which I actually didn't finish, if you can tell.
That's okay though.
I had to go to Phoenix, Arizona, so that's my excuse. But I also want to thank everyone who hopped on and asked questions, Zach and Cameron and all you guys over there. I really appreciate all the support. It means a lot when people, watch stuff and comment on my videos. It keeps me going.
Hopefully you got some more subscribers tonight. I think that you're definitely going to grow. The thing is, your videos go viral in a sense, right? Like, your Instagram videos are getting so many views. It just has to translate to your YouTube now.
Well, I mean, that'd be nice, of course, but I don't think none of my videos have ever gotten like viral status yet. I think that, some people out there, they get one of their videos and they get like, 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 followers in a day. Like, that's never happened to me. I've never had more than like 100 in a day. But maybe one day that'll happen. But even if it does or doesn't, I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it because I love it.
Dude, this video averaged like 7.3 thousand a day.
Wait, what do you mean?
This one here, you have 23,000 views on it, and you're only 7 days in.
Well, Instagram, the way it works is that 99% of the views happen within like the first 2 days, and probably 75% within the first 24 hours.
Would like to point out, not a single anything I've ever posted in my life has had that many views. So
Dude,
to me, that's viral.
Hop on TikTok if you're not already on TikTok.
Dude, I tried TikTok. None of my stuff caught on. It was sad.
Video with
If Jake's stuff works, your stuff will work, man. Come on.
Well,
Jake's
you're gonna
like,
have
I
to
hate you.
Away. You're gonna have to
wait. We'll take this off screen. But thank you guys. Let's end the live stream. Nico Hangout. We'll go off screen here. But thank you again for coming out. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Next week we will have Nico our highlight reel released, same as we did with Drew. So you're gonna be able to go watch just the stuff you want to see and not all the in between.
Please cut out all my ums and my ums. All the bad parts where I look bad and make a fool of myself. Please cut that out.
No, that stays. I'd like to point out Jake likes to even include where I keep fucking up all the words. So everything is fair game.
I don't mind that.
Thanks guys so much again for coming out. And in 2 weeks we will have another awesome guest who I forgot to bring my notebook, so I don't have it written down who it is. So it's going to be a surprise I announce later. So yay. But thank you guys so much for coming out. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you guys.
Thanks, man.